everyone. Thanks for stopping by my channel again today. I'm Carla and my channel is Imagine That with Carla. Now before I get started, I just want to say you guys really surprised me and I was shocked. It took me a while to catch on as to what was really happening, but when I did, I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening to me. But in my last video, I had mentioned that I had like 750, 40 something subscribers, and I would really like to reach 1,000 subscribers before Christmas. So after that video, I always check my comment section, and the first thing that I read was Tina sent me. I'm thinking, Tina sent me. Okay. And then I'd check back and I'd see more comments. Tina sent me, and I subscribed. Tina sent me, and I'm glad she did. Tina sent me, and I loved watching your videos. I mean, it was on and on and on. I'm just like, what? Tina. And then I thought, the only Tina I can associate Tina with is Tina Williams of Rehatch Designs. And she is one fantastic lady, isn't she? I mean, so many methods and techniques and so many quality items that she makes over, and I don't know, she's wonderful. I just love watching her videos. So anyway, I thought, well, I think I'm gonna watch her video. It had just come out and I hadn't had a chance to watch it yet, even though I do watch most of those. And so I watched it, and sure enough, someone had given her my name for her wanting to help out those who had not reached 1,000 subscribers yet. I don't remember your name. It went by me pretty quick, and I went back and tried to remember it, and I still couldn't remember it. So I am so sorry, but thank you so much for thinking of me and giving Tina my name. And Tina, thank you so much for remaking one of my little projects on my video, and your breadboards turned out wonderful. I've sold a few so far, but anyway, good luck with those. You did a wonderful job. Anyway, they make good gifts even if they don't sell, so I know people I can give them to even if they don't sell. Okay, let's get past that, but I just thank you guys so much. You don't know how shocked I was. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Today, I have 5 projects to share with you. I have a mold that I had cast for another project, ended up not using it, so we're using those castings for one of my projects. I'm using a couple of transfers. I'm using a couple of inlays on the same project, and I am going to do a little bit of crackle, and I am upscaling this little pot that I got, and I think it turned out really cute. So stay with me, stay tuned, sit back, relax, watch the videos, and in the comments section, let me know what you think. Let's get started. So this is a tray that I thrifted, and I've already used DIY's Big Top to kind of seal it in because it had some water stains on top. Now what I'm going to do is use DIY's Dark and Decrepit Liquid Patina. Now this particular product can be used either as a stain or glaze. Now in most of my projects, I use it as a stain. I've just been kind of drawn to dark wood lately, and I just think it looks so rich. So that's what I've been using it for. Here I'm getting ready to apply an inlay. I've already painted the surface of this tray with Raw Silk by Fusion, and I'm using an inlay from the new IOD inlay packet from the winter release this year called 12th Night, and I'm going to mist it with water on the tray, and then I mist the inlay itself with water on the paint side. I like to add a little bit of water before I put my inlay on there on my paint, just to make sure it's nice and wet, and this way I can make sure I can press that inlay down into the paint. Now you wet it again and press it in and get excess water off. And the next little inlay that I'm using came from the winter release last year called Gloria. It's just a little piece of holly that I'm going to put at the top. And what I did here, I went ahead and I sprayed that and painted that to mix it in, used my paintbrush, kind of smooth that in. Then I moistened also the inlay that I'm going to lay on there. And when I put that on there, I had already kind of tried to pull up the bottom inlay, and when I did, it wasn't quite ready. I could tell it wasn't ready, so I had sprayed it and put it back on to dry. And while it was drying, the top inlay that I'm now placing on there had dried, and I had pulled it up, and I still had yet to pull up the bottom inlay. I hope I'm making sense. So when I got ready to pull up the bottom inlay, I had already taken the top inlay off, so I had to cover it with a towel to make sure that I didn't spray water on it or it would smear because it had not yet been sealed. So here, the bottom one is dry, and I'm misting it with water again because I'm getting ready to pull it off. So as I dab that on with a dry cloth, getting that into there so I can get it to release. You can see I didn't get it sprayed at the very top line where the inlay paper hits, and I'll show you what that does in a second. But here I start pulling off, and it's giving me a little bit of resistance up here. So I'm going to go back, and I am going to spritz that with water again. And I press that in again. And this time I don't need to let it dry. I just start peeling back, and right up there is where the paper stuck because I didn't get it wet. But anyway, watch when I pull this off. This is the magic. This is so beautiful. Look how that just comes off beautifully. I couldn't have asked for anything any better than that. But I did remove that paper at the top, and now I'm taking some raw silk and just going around trying to remove some of those panty lines, they call them. That's the line around the inlay paper itself, and just kind of smooth that in so it isn't so noticeable. And while I'm doing that, you can see I'll have some white spots on my tray, but I clean that all up before I'm finished. I'll also take it outside and use a satin clear spray on it to seal these inlays in so they won't smear if they should come in contact with water. Project number 2 is this little candlestick that I thrifted for $1, and I did paint it with coal black fusion paint. Somehow I missed recording that, and I got this little tree at Hobby Lobby. It's kind of a wiry tree, and I'm getting the bottom off because that was much too large to go onto the candlestick, and I have this metal stem sticking out. So here it is. It just turned black, didn't it? And I'm taking some floral foam, and I'm going to trim it down so it can fit down into that candle holder. And what I want to do then is attach that tree to that. Now it's still a little bit too big, so I just use my serrated knife, come back and trim that off, and couldn't ask for it to fit any better. That's great. Now what I want to do is take that tree and I want to stick that stem down in there to give me a hole in which to apply the hot glue. Now, you know that if you put hot glue on floral foam, or if you've ever done that before, you know, it's going to melt it. So I added that, and then I added more before I actually put that tree in. And then I went around the bottom with hot glue to secure that to the top of that candlestick. Here I'm taking some tartan ribbon, and it is black, gold, and red, and I'm tying this around the candlestick, and I got ready to make the bow and realized I just didn't have much left on that spool. So I'm attempting to make a bow that will go on here, and I think it turned out just fine. I am kind of going to scrunch it in the middle and put it up there. So here I'm pulling down the sides. I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue, pull down the other side, and make another loop. Kind of hot glue that together. Then I'm taking this zip tie. I have a black zip tie. I'm going to put that down the center and thread it through and pull it really tight. Then I'm going to snip off that tail. And then I'm just going to place that up where I had tied that ribbon on. I want to tie a knot around that bow, and I want it to be a kind of a fat poofy knot. I don't want it to be real skinny and tight. And here I'm just adding a little glue to secure that bow at the top. And this was a very simple project, but I think it turned out really classy. It's hard to see because my camera doesn't get it all in. But here is the final project, and I just love the way this little simple project turned out. This is a little pot I picked up at a garage sale for $2. Our city has a citywide garage sale every year, late summer, and you can just drive through the town, find all kinds of things. Now, this had a crack in it, but that didn't bother me because I knew I was going to use this for myself. I have cats, and so I can't use real poinsettias. So I was going to use this for a faux poinsettia. Now I'm using Fusion Highlander mineral paint, and I'm going to paint the bow red. And you can see I'm not taking very many paints with this because I know I'll be painting with coal black fusion paint, the top and the bottom, and the center between the bows. And as I paint that, I know I can kind of clean up where my paint went over the ribbon. Now after I get this done, I'm just going to take a little bit of that paint and do the top, get around the edge at the top. When that dries, I decided I wanted to put some gold wax on there. It's similar to Rub and Buff, but I've had this for a while, and it's starting to get down in the bottom there and hard for me to kind of get it out, and kind of drying out a little bit. It's hard to kind of smooth on. So I may be retiring this soon and looking for some Rub and Buff. Here now I'm going around the ribbon. And the thing with this wax, so I'm trying to use my finger. A lot of times my finger, you know, is longer or whatever, but it smudges, it gets off of what I'm trying to put the wax on. And I fixed that right here. You can see this is much bolder and brighter with the gold. And I'm going to show you how I did that in another project that I'll be doing. I like it. To me, it looks more classy. You can still see a hint of the red coming through. I don't know why this is so dark. Excuse me, but the red does show up a little bit, but I love the boldness of the gold on this piece. And there's my poinsettia that my cats can play with or do whatever they want, and it won't hurt them. This is a simple little glass black vase, and I put a simple little transfer on it last year and just put that in my booth, and it did not sell. So with the surface of this glass being so slick and so glossy, I thought I would take some of Dixie Belle's Slick Stick, and I'm going to cover this entire vase with Slick Stick with one coat, and when that dries, after about 30 or 45 minutes, I covered it with another coat and let it set all night. Here I'm going over it now with a coat of Fusion Raw Silk Mineral Paint. And I'm not taking a lot of pains with this because I'm going to be doing some paint mixing to go over this, but I pretty much just want to give it a nice coat over the slick stick. Here I've got my paint that I want to be mixing, and I've got some raw silk by Fusion, some Victoria lace, and some French eggshell. Now I get started with this, and my goal is to kind of match up with the center of this transfer. I kind of want to give a mottled look. Now I had someone tell me in one of their comments, and was a great idea, that a sea sponge would work really well for this kind of effect that I'm going for, but I haven't remembered to pick one up yet, but I am going to try to get one of those. Now I thought I needed a little bit darker hue to go with this, so I'm taking that Palmetto by Dixie Belle. I'm going to put some of that out and start mixing that in. And I thought I almost needed a little bit of a neutral to go in there. So back to my Fusion Tapestry. And I'm just poking my brush in there because there's hardly any left in this little bottle. I'm going and moving along. I've got this whole thing pretty much covered. And then I decided I kind of want the bottom to be a little bit darker. Going to let that kind of have a gradient, kind of fading up into the top, a little darker on the bottom. When that's complete, I want to seal that with liquid patina by DIY, so I'll be able to adhere my transfer to this vase. When that's dried, I'm going to take my transfer, which is by Prima Redesign, and I'm going to be applying that to this vase. I love these colors. I'm looking at it there, just loving the way they're turning out. Now this transfer comes from a packet that came out this year called Yuletide Nostalgia. And I'm going to place that on. And because this vase has a curved surface, and the transfer itself is also kind of curved and oblong shape, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm cutting into this transfer up to where the actual transfer begins. I want to give it some flexibility when I am pressing on to get this transfer to adhere without causing wrinkles. I want to give it some wiggle room there. So I'm just cutting in all these little places. Now I'm ready to take my transfer tool. Now with the Prima Redesign, you do get a transfer tool. It's a wooden one. I don't know, I'm just used to using this one that comes with the IOD transfer, so this is my transfer tool of choice, I guess. Now, my experience has been when using the Prima Redesign transfers, they're a little more difficult to get started. And my reasoning is, I'm thinking it's because they do have this more noticeable halo or edging around the transfer itself. And once you get that on, you make sure that's adhered and you can start lifting a little bit. The rest of the transfer goes pretty quickly, but you almost have to make sure that you take your time and press firmly and just lift a little bit to get it started. And once you've lifted a little bit and gotten that started and that halo is secure on there, you can see it moves much faster. Here I'm going up on these little bitty pieces especially. Now when I get to the top here, there was one place where it just really didn't want to transfer, and the way that the wreath was made, if little bits stayed on it, it didn't make any difference. You couldn't really tell, it wasn't noticeable. There you can see a few little dark spots that didn't want to come off. But other than that, once I got past that halo line, it did great. I love the way this turned out. I love the way the color blends in with the background of that landscape scene that's inside of that wreath. Just love the way that looks. These I had pulled from either tinsel from last year or Figgy and Flourish this year, the gilded packets, and I decided it just didn't need those because I'm going to do something a little different with gold after we get this on. Here I have step 1, Paint Couture Crackle. Now, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to brush it on. I'm going to try to keep it going one direction. I don't know if it makes a difference. I really have not researched that. I haven't heard anyone say if you need to keep it going one direction with the first step or not. But I try to. There I went a different direction, but mostly I try to keep it one direction and, you know, try to keep it an even amount, not too thick, not too thin. When that's completely dry, which I usually wait about 30 to 40 minutes, it's usually closer to 40. You want it to dry to this phase where it's kind of tacky when you touch it. It's still a little bit sticky. And then I'm taking the number 2 step, adding that on. And what I have found with this is the thinner you make it, then you get a finer crackle. And if it's a little bit heavier, you're going to get, you know, a wider crackle. But if you get it too heavy and you leave it kind of creamy looking, then you're not going to get much of crackle at all. So I wouldn't have it so thick that it looks creamy after you are finished before it dries. Now, I dried it with my heating tool, and I just love the way it crackled. You can't see it very well on camera, but I can see it when I hold it under my light. Here I'm using Dixie Belle's Voodoo Gel Stain. And this is called Tobacco Road. That's the color this one is. And I'm going to add it to this cloth. And I'm going to cover this vase. And you will see this crackle just pop. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. And there's all different variations of the crackle, which I love. Just love the way this turns out. And I use a clean cloth after I'm finished applying it to kind of go through if there's any residue still on there, that will take it off, and it also buffs it to a nice little shine, not glossy in any way, but it just gives it a nice finished look. Now, I love that. I just love that. Now, I'm going to try a new product here. This is by Pentart. These are called Metal Pigment and Pigment Fix. The metal pigment are just these little flakes, and the one I'm using is gold. It comes in different ones. And this is new to me, so I'm not really sure about how the proportions go as far as mixing. So I put that many flakes, and I'm just putting a little dab of the pigment mix, and I'm mixing it with a toothpick, which did not mix it as well as it should have. So next time I'll probably use a popsicle stick, something that I can kind of smoosh it up just a little bit more. But this works on the top of this vase perfectly. It makes it look so rich. The effect I'm going for with this vase is I like the old world look where things are aged, and you know, the crackle on here and kind of the fading look of the paints and the way I mix those. And this gold at the top, you know, to make it even look more aged, you could probably go back and add either some kind of dark stain or something over the gold to make it look like it had worn off. But I kind of liked it looking like it was all on there. To me, it looks like maybe 18 karat gold on the top of this. It's really shiny, just very bright. And I cover the top just with a little ring around the top, and that's all I'm going to put on this. I don't think it needs any more than that. Now, when I was using this on my pot, that's what I used to get that bright, solid gold look. I noticed that if there were little pieces there that I had not mixed very well, the little puffs would pop, and that little powdery gold flake would fall down on the pot, and I would have to go back and fill that and cover that up with some black paint. So I think mixing it is key. And here it doesn't show up very well. My camera, I thought, had trouble focusing because it does look much brighter in person, and the crackle is more distinct when I'm just looking at it than the way it shows up on this video. However, I did put some little berries and some eucalyptus and some little pine sprigs in the top. This project was this little wooden box that I thrifted, and it could be a wall hanger or it could be a shelf sitter. I would use it probably as a shelf sitter. It had the word blessed across the front in white, and I took it outside and sanded it. Again, I'm using the Dark and Decrepit by DIY as a stain, and I'm staining this box. I am going to be applying a transfer on here, but I am not going to have to worry about sealing it because the liquid patina itself acts as a sealer. After this is dry, I had these castings from a mold. It was from the Winter Forage mold this year, from IOD's winter release, and I didn't end up using them because I just changed my mind on the project that I was doing. As you can see, they were cast in clay, and getting them out was kind of tough. They kind of fell apart, but I knew I could piece them back together. I'm using Tight Bond Thick and Quick, and the first bottle I had was at the very end of it, and it was so thick that I brought out a new bottle because that first bottle was so thick my gloves were sticking to my gloves and to the transfers and to the castings and everything. Looks kind of messy right here, but it does dry clear. Next, I'm using a transfer from Partridge Lane, which is a IOD winter release this year, and I'm going to be using some snow paste from Pentart. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting these trees that are also from Partridge Lane. I'm going to separate those, and because the liquid patina acts as a sealer, I don't have any problem at all putting these transfers onto this rough wood. I was afraid maybe with the wood being rough it would not go on very well, but it went perfectly. Didn't have any problems at all. As I'm applying this row of houses, I wanted to leave just a little bit at the bottom because I wanted to add some of that snow paste. Now the snow paste I have had in my stash probably, I want to say 3 or 4 years, back in my craft fair days, and some of it had dried out, but since it's water-based, all you have to do is add some water to it, and I mixed it up and it was fine to use. So that made me feel good because I was afraid, oh no, I'm not going to be able to use it, but it did reconstitute and it went on perfectly. I went all the way across the bottom with it to get some snow on under these houses. And when I got to the end, I wanted to bring up a little bit under that little tree, kind of bring it up around the side like the falling snow. And then you're probably thinking, gosh, you can't even see those pine sprigs up there. That color is by Dixie Belle, and it's called collard greens, and it is very dark green, but it is a very rich color, and if you're closer you can really see the contrast better than on camera, and this white kind of helps it pop. But as you'll see, I do something else after this dries to make it pop even more. But before I get on with that, I'm using this new mold that came out this year, IOD winter release, and it is called Victoriana. I have cast a couple of bows with resin, and I'm going to use a smaller bow because I think it is proportioned better for this project. And I'm thinking I'm going to use tweezers to hold these, and I don't know why. I should have just grabbed it with my fingers because it didn't stay in there very well. So I did end up grabbing it with my fingers, and I'm using Fusion Highlander mineral paint to paint the bow red, and I went back with that Dixie Belle collard green and painted the little pine sprigs. I'm using my Starbond super glue, and I'm going to use Starbond accelerator because this bow will not fit flush on this surface, and I wanted to make sure it would stay. So after I placed that where I wanted it with the glue, I'm going to spritz it real fast with some accelerator, and that is holding that in place. So I had some of that gold still left, so I'm using that to kind of make this greenery pop, and I think it did the job. I think it turned out really nice. And then I just added just a little bit to the red bow. So you'll have to take a look at this, see how you like it, and what do you think of this project? So let me know in the comments section what you thought about these projects that I shared with you today. Did you have a favorite? Did any of them inspire you to try something that maybe you haven't tried before? Let me know. And again, I want to say thank all of you for supporting me. I appreciate it so much, and I'm going to keep trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by Christmas. So if you can share this out, if you know someone who might like some of the things that I do, I would appreciate that so much. I'm so grateful, and Tina, thank you so much for starting this for those of us who are really trying to grow our channels. And until next time, bye-bye.